Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Positive Pessimist podcast. I'm your host, Tim Gaither. My guest today is Newberg. Chris is one of my favorite guys in Hollywood. Very funny guy, great comedian, great person, and I'm just looking forward to having him on here. What else was I going to tell you? Oh, yeah, February 5th, I will be headlining a place called The Virgil in Reno, Nevada. 2 shows, 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. And you go to timgaithercomedy.com for tickets, or you can just go to eventbrite.com for tickets. At the end of the month, February 27th, I will be at the Columbus Funny Bone. But first things first, I would like to promote those shows at the Virgil, 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock shows. I'm really looking forward to it. And Reno is a fun town. I'm going to try to go skiing the next day before I come home. And yeah, I believe that's it. So make sure you check out those shows. I would appreciate it. All my shows are on timgaithercomedy.com. I'll be in Glendale, Arizona, March 13th, that's at Stir Crazy Comedy Club. But again, first things first, February 5th. I'd love to sell those shows out in Reno. So if you're in the area, please come see me. And yeah, without any further ado, let's bring in my buddy, Chris Newberg. What's up, you handsome devil?
What's up, brother?
Can you hear me all right?
Of course.
Good. You say of course, but a lot of times I'll think everything's right and I'll click on it and people hear me, and I'm just sitting there watching them. It's like a bad kung fu movie.
That's what I like, bad kung fu.
You remember, what was the name of that show? The kung fu guy, David Carradine.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of that? Do you remember?
What was the name of David Carradine, or what was the name of his show?
What was the name of that show where he wandered around just kicking
rain?
It was just called Kung Fu?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Are we on right now? Are we live? Are we just going?
Yeah, we're just recording. Yeah.
Great.
So,
okay.
Yeah, anything you say, if you talk any shit on anybody and you want me to take it out, we can take it out.
I'm fine with whatever. I'm happy with anything I say.
I've always liked that about you.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. I did have one of those moments where it was just like, you try to not be, you try to do your jokes. Your jokes are your jokes. They're funny and whatever. But I was interviewing Gabby Lamb once on my show, and I was just like, I was looking at statistics that just popped up, and it just said the coronavirus takes 2 years off of African American people's lives and 1 year off of everyone else's lives, or however it was worded. And I was just reading the stats, and I was on air, and I was just like, and I was live, and I was like, oh, well, I guess it's like you lose 2 years for African Americans and regular people lose like a year. And then I was just like, oh, fuck, what did I say? And I was just like, I didn't mean anything by it. But I was like, stop, back it up. And I deleted it. I think I deleted the whole episode. It makes no sense considering I just told you the story.
So how you been, man? How has all this shit been for you? Been a rough 2 years?
Not like mentally maybe, but like not really. It's like the only thing that it seemed like a really long lack of booking drought, and it's just like, 'cause it's pretty much all comics do anyway, kind of hang out, sit around the house, watch TV, write, read, look up stuff. And then we go out at night and we perform. And then just minus the not being able to perform thing, everything else was pretty much the same. I got lucky. I worked on like 5 or 6 TV shows during the time, and I was able to work remotely. So I didn't mind it.
Worked on it how? Like, were you a writer?
Yeah, I do a lot of, I'm not in the guild, but the majority of the stuff that I do on TV shows is all like writing, producing for talent, as far as like I was Jamie Foxx's writer on the last season of Beat Shazam, just for the opening monologues. And that was interesting, super interesting, because I never met him. And I talked to him once, shook his hand, but we never talked, so I don't really consider that meeting him. And he was the greatest joke reader, better than any. Yeah, he used to be a comic, but he would cold read perfect jokes, and he would just like literally cold read it. It wasn't like, let me see. It wasn't like scroll prompter, let me see it. It was like, let's go. I was so impressed with that dude. So, but yeah, it's a lot of joke writing and silly puns and like game show dad type jokes.
Okay. Before we go on, I wanted to ask you this before I forget. How did you come up with the name? What's the meaning behind heroin has a great publicist?
It's just an example of how there is a lot of idiotic things that are proven to be idiotic that people do anyway. So it's just like, it's basically like stupid things, stupid shit we don't do, even though we know it could potentially be deadly.
Yeah. It's like those crack documentaries you see, and the person always has missing teeth, and you're like, you know what it does. You've seen HBO. Like, I had a buddy who was he's since passed away. He got killed in a bad situation, but he got into crack, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You know not to do crack. You think you're going to be the one guy that just does crack casually,
Casual crack user.
Yeah, man, you've always been a great writer, and I've always admired that you're always trying out new stuff and working on new stuff. Is that something that you were able to develop early in your career, like the habit of writing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just repetition. It's just putting yourself. I mean, every comic has a different style. Like, I want to ask you what your writing style and approach is, but like I when I'm on a show, I'm just writing for a show, it's easy because it's just you do the exercises of like read a news story, pick the funny thing, put a switch on it, you're done. Like, it's all current events. It's all easy. When it comes to stuff for me, it's all just stuff that pops in my head. It's all observational. Oh, what if? And then a lot of it is just doing the exercises and just trying to make myself right every day definitely helped. But to answer your question, or maybe not have answered it at all, I've always loved being able to try new stuff, because why the fuck not? The only time it ever matters is that when you're on TV. Like, you could kill at a club. Kill. You walk off stage and it doesn't matter. That's it. It's over. It's in that void for that second. It's done. Or you could eat it. Doesn't matter. But if you want to try something that you're going to do when you get to TV, that's the only time it fucking matters. And there you're covered. You've got prompters. You've got notes. You've got everything you need. So why not just use all other opportunities? Just be the gym.
Yeah, man, I was trying to tell this. There's this kid I met in Kansas City who wants to do comedy, and he started messaging me on Instagram and asking me how to get into it, and all these questions, that he doesn't need to know the answer to yet. I'm like, you need to just get on stage. That's all that matters right now. It doesn't matter if you go up there and, like you just said, if you destroy, good for you, but it still doesn't mean shit. And if you eat it, no one's going to remember, Exactly. I read something in a book when I was starting out about how, you eat it and you drive home thinking, everyone thinks I suck or whatever. But people don't remember when you don't do well. They just don't remember that guy. So, anyway.
There's a great sentence in the book, The Comic Toolbox, and it's, if you ever realized how little people thought of you, you would never care what other people thought.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Absolutely. What's your writing process? Like, what's your approach?
I'm not great about sitting down and writing, and I've tried to make it a habit for 23 years, and it's never really taken for me, but I do sit down and try to write, but all my best stuff happens on stage in the moment, and then I just remember it and keep saying it that way, Oh,
it's great.
Yeah. And ever since I was a little kid, like, if I thought too much about something, like in class or something, before I said it, it would never get a laugh. But if I just said it, if I just didn't think, is this going to be funny, or people going to, if I just say it, then it always gets a laugh. And that's pretty much held true for stand-up too. Like, if something pops in my head and I just say it, in the moment, it's almost always funny.
Right.
But then there are sometimes I think I've written a joke and it was strictly in the moment. It's never going to be, it's not a joke like I think it's going to be. Like, I did this gay bar one time. I was in between weeks at the Improvs in Texas, Arlington and Dallas or something. And this guy was like, hey, you want to do this contest on Wednesday? And it was at a gay bar. And I went up and I started talking to him, and I was like, I just don't see why people think God would make you a certain way and then punish you for it. And then I go, but they say serial killers are born that way too. So who knows? Maybe all of you will burn in hell. And they thought that was so funny. And they laughed so long that it got uncomfortable for me. And I've I've got other shit,
Mm-hmm.
and then I go up the next night at the Improv, and I can't wait to do my line about gay people, and I go, so who knows? Maybe all of them will burn in hell, and you could have heard a fucking pin drop in that place.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, and that was pretty new in my career, where I was like, oh, some things are just funny in the moment,
That's so funny.
I remember you telling me that you were a really good baseball player. Is that right? Am I remembering that right?
I mean, up until like high school.
Okay.
I was a really good pitcher.
Okay. You didn't go to college for it or anything?
No.
Okay.
I had a scholarship offer for theater to Loyola in Chicago, and I turned it down to be in a band and drive around the country in a van with my buddies.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, the shit you do when you're young, man. That saying, the youth is wasted on the young, has never made more sense to me than in the last couple of years, where I'm like starting to figure things out, but my body's going to shit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's all. How old are you now?
I'm 45.
Okay. It doesn't really start turning, dude, till like 46. 46 was kind of when the wheels start coming off.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm 51. And I mean, like, I get weird, and I think I'm in pretty good shape. I eat well. I walk all the time. I get phantom pains in parts of my body for no reason that'll just show up for a day and then just disappear. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been that way, though. Ever since I was little, like, I'll get this pain in my head, and I'm like, that's it. There's a tumor. I'm fucking dead. And and then it'll just go away. So I don't know what that's about. But the reason I asked you about baseball is because I wondered if that helped you when it came to performing, especially being a pitcher. I would think that being a pitcher would be even more nerve-wracking because everyone's watching you. Did that help you at all?
I never had I really never had problems with nerves on stage or ever. I just never did. I was just because I played in. I was like, I never really thought about pitching that way. I just thought, oh, cool, I get to try to strike this dude out with a choice of pitches I've decided on, which I believe my arsenal of pitches in sixth grade was 3: a fast one, a slow one, and a curveball.
Yeah.
And but like I was in a band for so long, it was like I was on stage for so long that by the time I got to stand up, there was zero. It was like I didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a gift, man, because ever since I was little, I was that kid that would get so nervous all the way up until high school. I would throw up the first few days of school.
Wow.
Yeah, and so when it came to stand up, though, I mean, I still to this day get nervous, but I remember thinking, like, that's what you're going to do with your life. Like, you're the kid who threw up before wrestling matches and before, going to school and that shit. But when it came to stand up, I was like, I just know I can do it,
Yeah.
To the point where I didn't even want to tell a lot of people because I didn't want them to discourage me or be like, "Ah, you're going to do what?" I'm like, "Fuck off. This is going to be fine,"
Right.
What made you decide to do stand up?
It was something that I could do by myself. It was something that I didn't have to rely on other musicians or band people to partake in, to contribute to. I was in control the entire time. I got tired of carrying musical equipment. I got tired of being in bars, playing cover songs to drunk a-holes. So I decided instead I would tell jokes to drunk a-holes. But I just decided because it's just like I wanted to. I mean, like I figured it out. I knew I was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that being in a band is super difficult too. Like if there's one thing that it's harder to make it in than comedy, it's probably music, because from what I've heard, when I understand, you have to split that money and a lot of it goes back into the band, and it just takes forever to get to where you're doing it for a living. Am I right on that or wrong?
Oh yeah, I mean it's like comedy. It's the same thing. It's just, I mean, obviously the money situation is completely different, but it's like the pyramid thing, like the people at the top work all the time. Some people work enough, and then there's a million other people down here who suck and are struggling and or just crawling and whatever. So yeah, it's definitely not a lucrative occupation unless you succeed.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of comedy, I remember James Johan. Do you know James?
I know that, I mean, it's an old thing. I'm drawing a blank on his face, but I absolutely know he's funny and I absolutely know who he is.
Well, he was the first road week I ever did. I was emceeing for Pauly Shore, and he was featuring, and I didn't know Pauly, just how it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him telling me, he'd been doing it like 10 years at this point, and I remember him telling me he's getting $500, and I was like, I looked at him and I was like, you're getting $500? Like that's all I ever want to do, is make $500 a week telling jokes, and now I realize why he looked at me the way he did. Like, yeah, I'm making $500.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It depends. Like, it's like, and there are so many headliners. That's what I want to do. Like, I'm kind of more moving into television more so because it's like, I've been on the road since I was, I don't know, 19, 20. Like, so it's like, I've done the road. I don't want to be like a club comic in my 50s doing it's like, I never really got into the like social media game. And I'm, late to the podcast world, etc. I want it to be organic. I want people who actually are there to see me to want to do it. And it's like, so I'm starting to get more into TV, but if I ever get to the point where I'm a successful headliner, I'm going to treat my openers and the people that I'm with like gold, like there, and I'm going to pay them well. And it's like, and I've worked with headliners who have paid me insane. And I've also worked with headliners who've paid me like $10. And it's like, they both have more money than God. It's why wouldn't you be cool to the people who are coming up just to give them a taste of what we all, So that's what I'm definitely going to be, the cool guy to the openers in the future.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the point where I'm doing less shows and making more money. I mean, I guess it's always been the goal, but now I'm booking like one night shows that I have to promote more,
right.
But the payoff is better and I don't have to deal with club owners. Like I would like to do maybe 6 clubs a year, and having a kid has really changed my, I was just telling somebody that like no girl has ever kept me off the road or kept me from doing comedy or anything like that. But my son is 3 and I never want to be away from him. When I am, I come home and he's like, it takes him a couple days before he's like, you're just going to leave me again. I can see it in him already. And I'm like, I never want to have a rift with my kid. I can't imagine like him being mad at me, like as a teenager or something. Anyway, that's a long way to say that I'm trying to change it. So I'm only doing maybe 2 or 3 shows a month, but there's shows that I want to do and I'm making good money and I'm done with just the whole game of it. Like I don't give a shit anymore. And I never thought I would say that and genuinely mean it, but I'm just over all that shit, and being in hotel rooms doesn't have the appeal to me that it used to. And I'm like, ugh, this sucks.
It's I always tell this story because it reminds me of every comic and every entertainer. So did you ever used to watch those television shows Behind the Music?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, so one of my favorite ones was the Twisted Sister one. So the Twisted Sister one is Dee Snider, and he's talking about how he's like, well, because we used to be in this, we used to be in a band. There was 9 of us in a van. We had to use like dressing rooms, bathrooms as dressing rooms, and we busted our ass and we drove up and down the coast for years and years and years and years. And then finally our album breaks and we sell 4 million copies. We got all the money. And all of a sudden I'm sitting by my pool. I've got a beautiful, healthy children. I've got a rock star fucking playmate wife. She's healthy. Corvette in the driveway, all the money that I need. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not mad anymore. I'm not angry. I don't have any interest. Like, I'm not, like, maybe I will take it. Like, I'm not going to be like, He's like, it changes your perspective. And the same thing with, like, when we get older, just like, if you figure out how to do it better, you're like, I'm not fucking going to Laugh Factory to say hi to the booker so he gives me a spot on a Thursday in fucking Long Beach.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
And I get that has to be done. I've just done it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Have you always had a positive attitude? Because it seems like you do. Do you have a positive attitude?
Yeah, because it's like there's not really a choice, you know? It's just like It is what it is. You're in this moment. You're existing. You can enjoy it or not enjoy it. You can accept it or just, be miserable. I'm a firm believer of the universe and a law of attraction. And I'm a firm believer that you get every single thing that you ask for. And it's also exhausting to constantly be positive and ask for things all the time because it's exhausting. No one can be happy and positive every day. But it's just the alternative. It's like if you sit around and this sucks, I hate this, whatever, that's what's going to come to you constantly. That's all that's going to be in your world. And I just decided a long time ago, it makes zero sense to do that because it accomplishes nothing, But I do have a question. So for you, do you feel that like you remind me we came from different places. We sound completely different with our accents. Stylistically, we couldn't be more different for comedy. You make me laugh to the point where I eyes water on stage. You make me laugh so fucking hard. Your jokes are so great. It's so funny. But and I'm not saying that I'm not funny as well. It's not a contest. But do you have people who've never seen you do comedy before think there's no fucking way this guy's funny? There's no fucking way because you're so dry. And like when you just talk, you're like, no way is this guy gonna be a fucking assassin on stage and rip people up. But you do that, and I'm the same way. When I'm not on stage, I'm like, I'm not on stage.
Yeah, I have people all the time. Somebody just the other day, I said I've been doing comedy now for 23 years since my first open mic, and somebody who knew me like from wrestling was like, I never saw you becoming a comedian. Like I was funny like in school and stuff, but I remember I was at a doctor's office not too long ago, and somehow it came up, and I told her what I did for a living, and the nurse was like, you're like, you're not funny. And I'm like, well, I'm at the fucking doctor's. Like, I'm trying to find out if I'm dying here or whatever the case was.
Right.
But so I don't know if I answered your question very well, but people are surprised when they find out I'm a comedian. I get that all the time.
Yeah, I can see that because it's just like we off stage, we're like, we're not working. We have other fucking things to do.
Yeah. Some guy commented on my YouTube the other day. He's like, don't people understand these guys are professionals and they think about this stuff day and night? And I'm like, I don't. Like, that's I don't sit around thinking like, how can I get a laugh out of every fucking thing? And when you come across those guys, they're usually pretty annoying and they're not very good comics. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, they're very exhausting. And I've been in writers' rooms where there are dudes who are the funniest guy in the room. Like you know those type. They're the funniest person in the room. There's no question. But they can't fucking write for shit. And I'm like, okay, you're the funniest guy in the room. You've been making us all laugh. Fucking write something that we can use.
Yeah.
So I guess it's in different arenas in different various forms. Who fucking knows?
Yeah. I like the fact that you tell jokes in between your songs. Like you just stand up there and you got really funny songs, but you also are always saying something funny off the cuff.
Oh, thank
you. I've always admired that about you. And I've always admired your positive attitude. Like I remember one time, the reason I said that is because I remember texting you. I'd probably been out in LA for maybe 2 years. And I sent you some crying text about something. And you weren't a dick or anything, but you just kind of responded like, yeah, well, you don't have to be here. And, and without being a dick about it, I was like, yeah, nobody wants to hear you bitch about things, I do. And it's kind of my nature sometimes, but I have realized that people don't want to hear it. And I'm trying to instill in my son, because by nature, I'm not always very positive. So I'm trying to make him more positive and see the good in all those things. Do you have any desire to be a dad or any of that stuff?
I'm sure it's in my future. I mean, my girlfriend and I have been together for 4 years, 3 years, 4 years. I'm sure this is probably the marriage year, I would assume. I assume it's probably time. And I would imagine children at some point. But I'm not in a crazy hurry. I'm not like, I so understand it. And I'm sure I'll have the exact same attitude that you have. Like nothing has been able to keep me from doing whatever I want except a child, because I've heard that hundreds of thousands of times from people who have kids. So yeah, I see it. I think that would be cool, but it's not, I'm just existing at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, it is like, I love him more than anything in the world, but it is all consuming. Like if you want to be a good dad, like I could see how it'd be easy if you just want to give them a device or turn on the TV or whatever. But if you want to be engaged with that child and make sure they're not
fuck, because I've heard like 0 to 3 is like super important, like for whether they have anxiety later in life and all this shit. So giving them your time is the most important thing.
Sure.
So to do that though is just fucking exhausting. Like I feel like I never have time for anything because I watch them a lot during the day. So I'm just saying, when people say it's a lot of work, when you don't have a kid, you're like, how much work can it be? And then you have one and you're like, holy shit. Like it's just fucking exhausting. But for as far as what it does for my heart, all those cliches are true. So I think you'd be a great dad. And so go ahead and do it one of these days.
I'm going to. I want to read you something that I read yesterday, and I want you to tell me whether or not it is accurate. Let's see. If I can find it quickly, I'll read it. If I can't, I will blow it off. But it's like, okay, here you go. I thought this was entertaining. I literally feel like there's something wrong with me. I'm drained. I can't function. The amount of effort I'm exerting does not match my exhaustion. I can't get anything complete. And the more and more I try to have success, I have physical pain in my whole body. I woke up this morning with a splitting migraine, a tension headache, what feels like all throughout my back and head. The more I try to power through, the more resistance and physical pain. I can't stop and rest. I have to get this done. It's just about physically not making any sense. I feel like something is literally sucking the life force out of me. Maybe the answer is yeah, but I also have a toddler. And I was just like, and I was funny.
Yeah, man, it's true. And there are times where I'm just exhausted and I'm like, why am I so freaking tired? And then I don't get any energy until it's time to go to bed. And then all of a sudden I'm wide awake and like I want to sleep all day long. And then when it's time to go to bed, like a normal person around midnight, I'm like, well, fuck, now I need to do something. And I think that's ingrained in me from doing comedy as long as we have, because during the day, man, it's the hardest for me to get shit done. In the days that I do, I feel great. I feel amazing when I accomplish things. So I'm like, well, why don't you just accomplish something every day? But then there are days where I don't do jack shit. Have you ever had another job as an adult besides entertaining people?
I haven't since I moved out here. I haven't since I moved out here at all. No, I made the decision. I was like, I was a private investigator and process server, and I had my own business for like 12 years in Michigan. So that was fun. Like I would follow cheating spouses and serve divorce papers on people. But when I came out here, I was like, nope, all comedy. And it sucked. Like I should have totally taken another side job. I don't know why I fucking did that, but
wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know that about you. You were a private investigator?
Yep.
Do you have any great stories?
Man, I always like, yeah, I get. I mean, it's mostly really sad stuff, It's like because it's like it was like rich people with money, and there's no winning. It's like some guy hires you, it's a lose-lose for him. Like if you hire a private investigator to tail a cheating or an allegedly cheating spouse, you've already lost, because if you're wrong, you feel like an asshole for not trusting your spouse. And if you're right, you just had to pay thousands of dollars to have your heart broken and kicked in. So it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know, man. So I think my favorite private investigative memory was, I was, a woman reached out to me and she wanted me to follow her husband who was going up north in Michigan over the weekend. So I met him. I picked him up outside his office, and I'm like, I've got my video camera. I'm like probably 25, 30 yards out. I'm in a SUV, tinted windows. I've got the camera up. I get him coming out of his office. I get the girl getting dropped off. They both take her luggage and his luggage and put it in his car and close it. They kiss. Then they get in the car and they drive, and I'm following, and they go up north like 3 hours, 3.5. I know where they're going, so I'm not on them for 3 straight hours. But I pass them sometimes and whatever. And anyways, so I get them. I beat them to the hotel. I get there. I'm in the parking lot. I'm situated. They drive in. They kiss again. They get out. They're hugging each other, holding hands. They're going into the hotel. And I call the wife, and I was like, all right, I got him. He's here. I got him at the hotel. I got him, whatever. She's like, I go, but here's the thing. This is not enough. This is not enough to do anything. This is just, it does not prove anything. You have to win an Academy Award for the next 48 hours. If he texts you or calls you, you're the sweetest, most loving, wonderful wife. You don't think anything. You don't suspect a thing. This is what it's all about. And she's like, yeah. She goes, so what do you have? And I was like, she's like, you have pictures? And she's like, I go, listen, I have all the proof we need. I have everything. And she's like, okay. So I'm like sitting there 25 minutes later. I see this guy fucking storm out. He's fucking bitching at this girl. He's like, shut up. And he's yelling at the chick that he's in the parking lot with. And he's like, fuck you. And he's like running all over. He's just, and he can't, because I'm across the street. There's like no way for him to know it's me. Whatever. He's like, fuck you. And he's like screaming his ass. So she's like, okay. So she's like, he's heading home. I'm like, I know. And she's like, so you have pictures? And I said, I have video. She goes, you don't have pictures? I said, no, I have video, which shows expression. It shows intent. It shows reaction. She's like, oh, fuck. He's going to be so mad at me. He's going to think I'm a liar because I told him I had pictures.
Wow.
And that was it. And I was just like, still frame the video, dummy. Of course you have pictures. But it was just so hilarious to me.
And he's going to think I'm a liar and because I caught him cheating in the way that he said that I didn't.
Yeah. And it was like, and I think they never filed. She never filed.
Yeah. People are freaking stupid, man.
So stupid.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, did you know Bob Saget?
I'd met him once or twice. I worked on a pilot that he was supposed to be the host of. It was a remake of You Bet Your Life, or it was either You Bet Your Life or $50,000 Question, or one of those remakes. It was terrible. Like, it was just shitty. It was done poorly. I never even got a chance to talk to him on it, but I did talk to him afterwards about it because I would see him at Laugh Factory once in a while. And I'd be like, oh, I worked on that show. He's like, oh, that was a fucking piece of shit. So glad that didn't fucking go. Just always nice, always funny. I think he gave me a tag, or I gave him a tag or something. I want to think that he gave me a tag. Just a nice guy. I mean, like, based on everything I've read about him, he seems great, but I didn't have any of that experience. I wasn't fortunate enough to have any of that experience with him.
Yeah, I met him very briefly at the Robin Williams thing at the Comedy Store. I mean, just like said, hi, kind of a thing. But I've heard these stories like he was just like crazy nice. Like he would sit and talk to you for hours if you were having a problem about something, and almost to the point where you're like, really? Like, is that true? Was he that fucking nice? But I guess he was, from all indications. So I didn't know how well you knew him. Have you heard how he died yet?
Heart attack.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. Fucking news, man. The other day I read this story that's like new details in Bob Saget's death. It made it sound like they knew, like there was some nefarious thing going on, and you read it and they're like, this whole article is basically like, yeah, we found him dead, but we don't know how. I'm like,
well, they said that he was on his bed like this. So when they found him, he was face down, and it was consistent with how your body lands with a heart attack. His father and his brother both died of congestive heart failure / heart attacks. It was like in his family. I don't know if it was his brother, but I think his father had heart issues and died young from it as well.
Yeah, and I heard he did like 2 hours that night, and which I've never done. I think the longest I've ever done is maybe like hour and 15, hour and 20. Do you ever do those marathon sets? Have you ever done those?
I'm sure I've done one or two in my day, but it's just like, I really know that I get paid the same if I'm doing 45 or an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I figure, I mean, I usually, my headlining sets are about an hour, but never anymore.
Yeah, anything beyond an hour to me just seems a little, and I'm not trying to talk shit on Bob Saget for having his 2 hour set, but it just seems too long. I don't give a shit how funny you are. It just seems too long for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I mean, but it's like, it depends. I mean, okay, but if we look at things on the great big picture, that was his last set he ever did. And yeah, he left it all fucking out there for 2 hours. That was his final. Like, how many people would like to be like, if you knew you could do your one final set, every joke, every experience, maybe you'd find yourself in the 2 hour window. but also he happens to be like America's dad. He was like white Bill Cosby minus the, minus all the craziness.
Yeah.
And so of course they're going to love him and keep giving him juice.
Do you know how to even give someone advice these days that's starting out? Because I feel like it's such a different business than when I started. Like when I was starting out, you went to an open mic and then you tried to get a guest spot, and then somebody gave you advice to get somebody give you an in to be an MC, and then you'd go back to that club a couple times and then move up to feature and then ask for a split week, and then before you know it, you're headlining for really shitty money. And you just did that, and you got good at it by featuring. And I feel like they've eliminated the feature spot at a lot of places. Like they're like, we don't need to pay a feature and put it up in a hotel. We can just have 3 guest spots and then the headliner go up. And I'm like, yeah, I see what you're doing there, but you're also in the long run, to me, kind of fucking up comedy, because the feature spot is where you, in my eyes, get good doing 30 minutes 5 or 6 times. That's how I came up. So to the point where when I came out to LA, people are like, you're so good. I'm like, well, I do this all the time, like for a living, like I hate when I hear people, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, but I hate when I hear people in LA, especially, bag on road guys. Like I know there are some hacks out there, but I also know that I'm like, yeah, well, that's why they have more than 7 fucking minutes,
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can bag on anybody. Like there's very successful cruise comics. There's very successful college comics. I mean, it just depends the fact that anybody gives a fuck about how anyone else lives their life is the funniest thing in the world. And we've all become, because of reality competition shows, we all believe that we are entitled to have an opinion on how someone else lives their fucking life.
Yeah.
It's hilarious to me. I don't know if I could give advice. Because you're right. It is different now. I think comedy is about the photograph now. You know what I mean? It's just like you have all those. I have a young comic friend who I bust his nuts all the fucking time. And he works at Supernova and he seats people, and he's on like every other show as the MC, and he gets 5-6 minutes. But every single one of his pictures are like, and it's shot fantastic. And it's like him in the round. He's like arms up. And it's just like started from the bottom. Now we're here. And I'm like, motherfucker, you have done nothing. Bill Burr's on that show. Those people are there to see Bill Burr. And it's like, and I want to shake all these fucking kids because it's all about that photo. And it's like, if those pictures could have sound, no one would go to the shows.
Yeah.
It's like, there's only so few. I think there are very few people. It sounds cocky and douchey or however it is, but I think it's safe to say very few people are good. Like at the level that you and I are good. We're good. Sorry, I don't like. It's proven. We eat because we're funny. That's how we live. And there's so few people who are that good. I'm not.
No,
and there's so many people who are better. A lot of people are better, way more successful. But oh man, there's so many people who are so terrible that you can't even like listen to them with a straight face when they're like, "I'm a comic." You're like,
yeah. Or when not to sound cocky about it, but when someone puts their cousin who's done 3 open mics in the same category as yourself, who hasn't had a J job in 20 something years or whatever it is, you're like, it's kind of insulting when you're like, oh, they do comedy too. Like,
yeah,
it's not the same, motherfucker.
No, that's one thing I don't have. I think the difference between like, I've always become, like the advice I always give to comedians as a young comic, I think I've actually become the person. Because it's like, I used to say there, did you ever see the movie Colors with Sean Penn and Robert Duvall?
Yeah.
So there's this great scene at the beginning of the movie where, if you remember, where Robert Duvall is talking to Pac-Man or Sean Penn's character, and he tells him a joke, and he's like, there's these 2 sheepdogs sitting up on a hill, an old sheepdog and a young sheepdog. And he goes, young sheepdog says, let's run down there and fuck one of those sheep. The old sheepdog says, no, let's walk down there and fuck them all. And it's just like, I've become that. I've become the walk. I don't have cockiness. I have confidence. And it's something that I cherish and I don't worry. Like if you go up in front of me and you destroy, I'm so happy for you. and I'm just going to go up and I'm going to do my thing. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be like, follow that fucker to whoever's behind me. Cause it's like, it's everybody's moment. It's everybody's like, airtime. It's everybody's whatever. You want your friends to succeed. You want people to do well. But the people who don't, they need to be told the truth. Stop fucking coddling these a-hole people who are not funny. Leave a masturbation joke. No one's ever fucking done that. Shut up.
Yeah, if I ever am following somebody that's just up there destroying, I just tell myself all you can do is what you do the way you do it, and they'll come along. Even if it takes a minute or two for them to come along, they will. And I do get frustrated with people starting out that are like, okay, I've got a headshot and I've got a social media and I'm like, you got everything but a joke, motherfucker. You need to learn how to do this. There's no skipping getting good on stage, no matter how funny you are off stage, or if you've done a few sets and they all went well, you're going to hit a wall, it just happens. And I feel like, once you start doing it all the time, that's when you get good. So these guys that have all this shit, they're promoting themselves. Like, how do I do this for a living? I'm like, just learn how to do it first, motherfucker. Why? That's the fun part to me. That first couple of years when you had no clue what the hell you're doing and everything was live and die. And that was the fun part. Now, the fun part is being on stage, but the rest of it,
it's hard.
Yeah. It is hard. I was telling my wife the other day, I was like, I don't give a shit I've never really cared much about being famous, but I was like, I don't care if I'm doing 2 bar gigs or a one night venue every month, as long as I'm getting paid good for it. I'm getting the whole door, and then I just have time to go to wrestling tournaments or spend time with my son or go skiing or whatever. I don't want to work a lot anymore. I just want to get paid what I deserve when I'm doing it,
And that's exactly what will happen. Yeah. Because you've made the decision, you've focused on it, and that's what's going to continue to come to you.
I hope so.
I think it was Charlie Sheen at his most fucked up said, "Hope is for suckers. Have faith."
Yeah, I like that. That's true.
It's the Sheen, the machine.
Yeah. What do you mean by the machine?
Charlie Sheen.
The machine. Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, it's a frustrating business sometimes, but I find that when I don't worry about it, that's when stuff comes to me. Or if I'm just positive, doing something positive, even if it's cleaning out my garage or something, I'll come back in. There'll be an email or something, worth of shit, and just doing something positive, no matter what it is, comes back to you in a different way. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, I mean, I don't sit around. I mean, you can definitely make a move to put things in motion for yourself. You can definitely take action to make things happen, but ultimately, I think that, it's so funny. My girlfriend turned on the hairdryer and I got so distracted, I completely forgot what we were talking about. That's how funny that is. You're talking about keeping yourself busy. Yeah, I don't sit around and focus obsessing, but I definitely know you can put things in motion. Okay, so for example, every comic has, I have this show idea. This is my show idea. I've got this, and every person that you meet in television is like, what's your show idea? What's the deal with whatever, whatever. So having worked in television for the past, 7-10 years, working on different game shows, I've probably done close to 600 or 700 episodes of TV at this point in my life. So I was like, I'm going to create shows. So I would just you think, everybody's got a show. It's you talk to anyone, and they say it to you with the same enthusiasm and certainty as they come to you after your show. Oh, hey, I really enjoyed your show, as you're sitting there with your beverage and your CDs or whatever you're selling. I got a joke for you, and you're like, I would rather have dogs eat my nuts one at a time in front of me. You know what I mean? And so everyone's got show ideas to pitch. But the ones that actually get sold are the shows that are all about the person and whatever, and how much of yourself you put into it, and if it's interesting and unique. So I've come up with I want to say 25, 30 shows, none of which have ever gone anywhere because I've got this idea, I've got whatever. So my manager gave me this come to Jesus meeting like 6 months ago. He's like, I'm so tired of you calling me and telling me how you have an amazing idea and then you kind of phone it in. He's like, if you want to succeed, if you want to actually do all of the things that you want to do, why don't you fucking follow through? He goes, I've seen you do it with jokes. He goes, you have your whole set mapped out in your brain. He goes, that doesn't mean I can read it or understand it. Put it on paper, make it clear, whatever. So I was like, fine, whatever, I'll do that. And it sucked, dude. It was sucked. But it's like I did the work, did whatever. And I've had 2 pitch meetings already with 2 different production companies for 2 different shows this year. And I've got production deals for both of them because they want to make the show or try to pursue what happens with it. Again, it's not, I didn't sell the shows. They're not on network yet, but it's like a level of progress that I had only because I did the work and because it's like I made the effort and I tried. So I don't even know if I answered your question, but in a really long way, I put all the effort into the things I want now.
Yeah.
And I don't just sit around and go, like, I'm not going to call 28 different clubs in LA. Like, I love Rich. I love the room in Bellflower. I don't really want to drive there all the time for 3 hours round trip for $100. It's like, that's not inspiring.
Right.
But it's like, and it's not like I need stage time, but when I need stage time, I'll do it, but I'll do it because I want to. Yeah. Do you feel that way?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I'm doing a really shitty gig. Well, I shouldn't call it shitty. I've had a lot of fun there. Like I went up there. Have you ever done that room in San Clemente, Doug James's gig?
Uh-uh.
Well, I'll hook you up with him if you want, but
I'd love it.
It's in San Clemente, and I regret even calling it a shitty gig because it's not. It has the potential to be, but every time I go in there, like I headlined it a few weeks ago, and I was telling myself all the way there, I'm like, all right, you got all these opinions, go up there. Like I was kind of practicing them in my car, you know, and I pray a lot, and I was like, God, just help me go up there with the same confidence that I have in this car, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll have all this confidence. I'm like, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this. And then I'll get up there and it was pretty packed that night. And I remember going in the room and being like, holy shit, are you really going to say all that stuff that you were thinking in your car? Mm-hmm. And I just made myself, I was like, yes, you are. You're not going to be a pussy. You're going to go up there and it doesn't matter, Tim. It does not matter what happens in here. If you could completely eat shit at this bar gig, you're going to be fine. Just go up there and you don't do material you know works, you pussy. Go up there and say all this shit. So I just willed myself to do it. And I had a breakthrough. I just kept talking louder and faster and I didn't give myself any room to stop and or think about the fact that they're just kind of staring at this point that I'm making, because I always admired like Bill Hicks and Kinnison and those guys who didn't always, you know, like I asked, I can't think of his name now. He died and he was really funny. But he knew Bill Hicks coming up.
Ralphie?
No, he had a show in Vegas. Dude, I can't believe I can't remember his name. Okay. But anyway, he was telling me about Bill Hicks and how I was like, how was he able to go up there and talk about such controversial things and be so funny? And he goes, well, you have to remember he ate it a lot. And that he told me one time he never swam too far away from Dick Joke Island. So
that's a crazy word.
Yeah, which I thought was great. And so I'm sorry, this is the longest story ever to say that. Yeah, I do gigs sometimes like that, but I felt like I had a breakthrough. Like I went up and I just had all my opinions about the coronavirus and all this shit. And it was funny. And I was talking about 9/11, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. And it wasn't all funny, but I got off stage and I told Doug, I was like, I had a breakthrough, man. Like that's how I've always wanted to be. And I feel like if you want to keep getting good at comedy, you have to keep pushing yourself, because it's easy to do the same shit all the time. You know,
it's painful to watch.
Yeah, it's painful to do.
It is, but you know, like I believe, like I know I've been doing this long enough to know that if I think of something that I know is funny, I know that all I have to do is figure out a way to say it properly. But I know it's funny, and like, okay, so this is a fun example that happened to me the other day. It happened like I have this joke that the joke is people in Los Angeles are so self-involved. They're so over the top selfish. They're the most ridiculously like narcissistic nut job people you've ever met in your entire life. For example, if there was an active and I say to somebody, I'm like, just imagine your most high maintenance friend, whoever it is, like, whoever your most high maintenance person is in your life, and all of a sudden they're coming over and they have dietary restrictions, and maybe they have some sort of thing that requires them to have organic kale. So you're like, all right, fine. So you have to go to the store to get this organic kale for your friend. You go to the store, you get to Whole Foods, is the only place that has the actual organic kale by brand that your annoying friend wanted. And the police have established a perimeter. There's like a perimeter around the Whole Foods because there's an active shooter in the Whole Foods. I guarantee every time that would happen in Los Angeles, people would go near wherever the barricades were and they'd be like, how long is this going to be? And and I get dead silence when I tell that joke because people hear active shooter, people hear whatever. But the other day I was driving, I took my girlfriend to her mom's house her mom lives in the Valley, Ventura and like Lancashire. And I drove over there and Citizen blows up and it's just like there's an active shooter situation at the Ralphs. So we were driving on Moore Park, the street behind the Ralphs over there at the time. And the police had put perimeter all over the whatever. So I'm like, I'm just going to go on Ventura because there's a couple of helicopters above. I'm just going to take Ventura. I'm sure it's safe. Otherwise they would have closed it. I'm at a stoplight and I just kind of pull over because I just kind of want to watch for a second. I literally see this woman walk up to one of the cops. She goes, will this go past 3:30? And I was just like, I'm a prophet. And I knew it was funny, and I knew it would happen. But it was just like so it's like now, a year after I wrote that joke, after seeing that, I finally know how to tell it. Because like you know how it is, like you get it. Like you'll have a great idea, and it'll just be like wonk forever, and then finally, like you said, the breakthrough.
Yeah, sometimes you'll hang on to something forever because it's funny, and then one day you just say it differently on stage. You change 2 words or take 2 words out or add 2 words, and all of a sudden it's funny. I had a really good composition teacher in college, and she taught me I would give her a paper I was all proud of, and she'd give it back, and she would have a line through every word I didn't need. So when I started doing comedy, I always try to write that way. Like I read this book called Zen and the Art of Stand-Up Comedy when I was starting out, before I even started. And he said, if you can say something in 9 words instead of 13, do that every fucking time. And by the end of your set, you have cut out like 7 minutes of bullshit. I mean, absolute bullshit that if it doesn't add to what you're saying, it takes away from it. Mm-hmm. Those are the little things that I remember reading in this book that have always held true. Like I had a friend at the Comedy Store one night. He's a paid regular there. And I was like, he came on stage and I was like, if you would stop saying and shit, I go, that was like 4 minutes of your set. Just those 2 words and shit, because he would say something, he would say that. So it's all in the fucking details. I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah.
I understand what you're saying though.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets about your stand-up career, or has it all gone the way you?
No, I mean, I suppose I don't know. I mean, I guess I just figured it out. I got here. I've had a lot of success. I mean, my main goal is to do the Tonight Show, and then I've done a bunch of late night. I'm working on TV. I've got to tour arenas and like stadiums and like I've been very fortunate. And yeah, I don't really have any regrets. I mean, it's just like maybe moving here earlier, but I don't think I would have been as good.
Yeah. How long did you wait before you moved to Los Angeles?
I moved to LA in 2004. And I think I started, I think 4 years I waited.
Okay.
I started like 99, 2000 doing stand up. And I mean, like, you talk about how people you're so good. You just started, like you came up in Kansas, right?
Yeah.
So Michigan was the same way. I was on stage 7 nights a week, like somewhere. I don't care if it was like Dave's basement. I was on stage.
Yeah.
And like you just going through it, and then you just don't have that opportunity here to have. And if you do have an opportunity to get up 7 nights here, it's not quality shows. It's like stand in your room and just talk out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I just want to. I don't care what the venue is, as long as I'm getting 100% of the door and the room is packed, and I walk out of there with a lot of money and get to come home to my family. It's weird. It's weird how your goals kind of change, and it becomes, like, I still love it, but it's also just a means to an end, and I want to do it as little as possible now, so I can spend as much time with my kid. And there's a time I never thought that it would be that way, because I was somewhere every freaking night, I mean, I would break up with a girl over a guest spot when I was starting out,
Right.
and now I won't do that shit at all. What is the most frustrating thing about stand-up for you, especially these days?
That it just went away. I mean, it's like it went from a really shitty place to an almost non-existent place. If it's like, because anybody tells you stand up is amazing is a fucking masochistic moron, like both of us are. And it's just one of those things where it's like, prior to the lockdown, I mean, yeah, it was shit. It was shitty, but everybody could kind of work, but you didn't realize how shitty it was. Then when you have all this time to look back on it and have perspective of the things that you were obsessing over, it kind of makes you go, oh, that was kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
But maybe it wasn't. I mean, I think everything, listen, I know this is everything that I've ever gone through. It doesn't really accomplish anything to regret anything either. And they, the saying of, if you look forward to the future, you'll have anxiety. If you focus on the past, you'll be depressed. So your only choice is to live in the moment. But I tell you exactly, Tim, I know exactly what my future is going to be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep creating shows. I'm going to keep selling shows, and I'm going to get them to the point where they're like on the air, so I can pop on frequently. As a creator of the show, just like pop on, play a couple games, do whatever. And then I'm going to take that popularity, and I'm going to only play where I want to play, when I want to play, and in larger venues. I'm just going to play theaters. I'm not going to fucking do clubs. I'm not going to do 9 shows in a weekend, just like you are, bigger and more frequently. Like, I have zero doubt, and because I've spent my entire life preparing for it. Like, I practiced touring with Russell and with Dane, and like practice with creating shows by being on TV, practice my stand-up by doing it all the time. So that's what it's going to be. It's like the next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be there. And I'm not concerned, because I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be Tiffany Haddish. That looks horrifying to me. It looked horrifying to be as successful as she is. She's a great lady, but like, everyone on earth wants to know what she's fucking doing. And that would just like, didn't she just like, she just got into it. She just got a DUI, and she told it, like, she said her life was out of control or something. She was talking about, like, I don't want to be famous. I definitely I want what I deserve. And
yeah.
So long answer. Sorry.
No, it was perfect answer. And because it made me think of the last few years, stand up. There was a time I kind of liked being the anonymous headliner. Like, I got to the point where I was headlining, but I could stand in the back of the room, and most people didn't know who the headliner was until I went on stage. They were never like, oh, there's the guy, But I realized in the last few years, like, I have to get to the point where I have an audience, and I want people to come see me specifically, because just showing up to the club these days to see a comedy act, it ain't what it used to be. Now people are so fucking tight about everything that you can, but the stuff that I used to just destroy with, like, for a white guy, I talk a fair amount about race, and it used to destroy all the time. And now it either destroys or gets me stared at like I'm selling fucking insurance, because the audience has become so, I mean, it feels like they're brainwashed. Do you feel like that at all?
Well, they are, because every single individual human being opens up a laptop that is catered to their, analytics. Every single person gets the news that they want. It gets the sports information that they want to talk, gets the stories and topics and things they want to talk about. All of a sudden they go to a comedy show, and it's someone who's not in their demo, and they're like, because we're all spoon fed. So as comics, that's why it's even more interesting, because it's like we're all spoon fed everything that we like. It's like if you don't like Fox News, you go to CNN. You don't like CNN, you go wherever, MSN. Like, you go get your news, or Wall Street Journal. You can just go to different places. But because, like, now with the advancement of technology and social media. I think it was yesterday someone said something like, they texted me something like, oh man, we should get tents and go camping. And now I'm getting all ads for camping and tents. And I'm like, okay, because that's something someone's listening, someone's feeding. So yeah, you're right. If you're a comic at a comedy club and you're doing the stuff that you know destroys to the people who are fans of you, you're going to win every time. But like those 10 comic spots, comedy and magic anymore. Like, I mean, it's just different. It's like you're rolling the dice. There it's easier because it's all people who are elevated and good. But it's definitely challenging to do stand-up in front of people who don't believe what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a great point, is that we're all spoon-fed what we want to see. And, like, I don't even really see an opinion that I don't agree with anymore, just because of that's just how it works now. So yeah, I think you said that in a way that I haven't really heard anyone say, but people are absolutely brainwashed one way or the other, because sometimes I'll hear an opinion and I know what my opinion is, but I'm like, how the fuck do you still believe that? But they're thinking the same exact thing about me, because like you just said, you can, that's why these days, especially, it's so frustrating, because it makes it almost impossible to know what the real truth is anymore.
I'm not mad. Like, whatever someone decides, if they don't want to be vaccinated, that's their choice. I'm not pissed. I'm not like, get away from me. Again, it's us thinking that we have the audacity to think that we have an opinion on how someone else lives their fucking life. But like when you see these fights on social media, we all, whether you have one follower or a million, those are an army of people who know what you're about and who agree with you. So if all of a sudden you're on someone else's page and Stan's like, Trump is Jesus, and you're like, you're a fucking moron because you're fucking stupid, because you're dumb and your wife's a whore, or whatever the answer is, you're going to have at least 10 people who are like, great response, Bobby. Great response. Fuck that guy. So it's really maddening and it's hard to know. So I don't know. I think it just feels like I live a block from the Laugh Factory, and it just seems like it's always gray. It seems like everyone's miserable. The homeless population up here is particularly crazy. I don't feel safe walking here at night. Everyone's masked or not masked. You have SoFi with 40,000 people, none of them wearing a mask. And then you have people being like, you can't be in an elevator. If you have so it's like, and if you stand up, you can get it. But if you're sitting, you can't. And it's comedy gold, dude. It's what it is.
Yeah. I totally forgot what the hell I was going to say. I had a point I was raising towards. Oh, like Facebook arguments. I've told people before, I'm like, once you call someone a name, it doesn't matter how good of a point you make. You've called them a name. I love when people are like, no offense, but you're a fucking dumbass. It's like, well, you think because you said no offense and then insulted me, that makes it okay? Like, I don't and, I was popping off my opinion there for a while. And the last few months, I've gotten away from it. And I went back in and I made a joke about something like gas prices or something. And the next thing I know, people are arguing. And I just deleted it. I'm like, I don't want to be... I just want to spread peace as best I can. Like, that's who I used to be and who I try to be all the time. I've always tried to make peace and all that stuff. And I realized, like, you're just helping spread this negativity and all this hatred and all this shit. And people either have their opinion, they don't change their mind because of what you say. Never. They just agree with it, and you feel good about them agreeing with it, or they argue with you, and then you get pissed off. So there's no point in it. And since I've quit doing that and quit really going on social media very much, except to promote something or whatever, I'm so much happier.
Of course,
dude.
Yeah. You can't not be. It's wonderful to age out of. If I look at Instagram for more than 30 seconds. I'm like, what am I doing here? This is like, I feel lost. I did have this one thing. I thought of this. I know this is funny too, but it doesn't it hasn't gone over yet. Tell me if you think like this is a new premise for a bit. Since, we don't get to do shows as often as we used to, we both appreciate another comic being honest, I'm sure. So I was trying to explain, I think that the easiest way to explain all lives matter thinking, regardless of your opinion, is this. Let's say you have two comedians. Let's say it's the Sklar brothers, okay? They're twins. They're mirror twins. They're identical. They're the same comedian. They're a duo, same race. They perform in front of packed houses. They get standing ovations. And then all of a sudden, after the show, they're both standing there, and someone walks up to Joel instead of Jason and says, "Oh, you were really funny." The other one just goes, "Oh." Like, that's, I think that explains the whole thing. I don't know why. I just think it does. And I don't know if what political will hurt, but I just know that if you're a comic standing next to another comic and someone goes, "You're funny," you're like, "Well, I'm funny." It's so dumb, but I think it's dumb but profound.
Yeah. It's funny. That reminds me of how often people want to come up and tell one comic they were funny, and without saying it, they're like, "You weren't, but you were great." It's like, it's not a contest, bitch.
It's not.
Yeah. And when I was featuring all the time, I tried to always be like, "I'm glad you enjoyed the show," especially if they said something derogatory about the headliner.
Yeah,
I'm glad you enjoyed the show. And they would always look at me like, "No, I said you were better." And I'm like, I don't care. And you also don't know how much harder a job he has than I did. As a feature, you just go up and cherry pick all your best shit for 25 minutes. But now that I'm headlining, I'm like, oh, fuck. It's not always easy. The checks are coming out, and I'm someone who they need to hear every word. So when somebody fucks up that ability for them to hear every word, it drives me insane as a comedian. I want to ask you this before I let you get out of here. Right. What is the worst? Can you point to one gig you've done that was the worst, or a heckle situation, or just a shitty show? What's the worst you think you've ever done?
Yeah, I was Dave Coulier several years ago, and I was still living in Detroit. Was supposed to do a charity event for this charity called Mira. I don't know what the letters stand for, but it's parents of children who had committed suicide. This was in the 2011, maybe 2012, but more. It was right around 9/11. It was post 9/11. Could have been a month, 2 months, a year. It was a new wound to the country. So I get up on stage, and I do my 9/11 joke, which I've done forever. It's a 9/11, horrible tragedy, terrible tragedy. I never in a million years ever tried to make light of 9/11, but I always think to myself, right around the time that it happened, do you think the people who worked in the advertising department for the store 7-Eleven were like, that was pretty close, And whatever. The second I told that joke, it got a smattering of laughter, and two women beeline to the front of the stage. No one could hear them but me. And this was like a ballroom black tie. And these women were like, "Get off the stage. You're fucking terrible. You're ruining this. Get off." And no one can hear them, but they're right in my face. And I'm just like, and I don't know what to do because I don't know who they are or whatever. So they keep fucking 2 or 3 straight minutes just in my face. "You're terrible." And I'm shook. So I'm like, all right, I was supposed to do an hour, and I was supposed to get $5,000. And it was more money than I'd ever seen in my life for comedy. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I walk off stage, the guy comes up to me and goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" I go, "There's 2 ladies told me to get off." He goes, "I don't know. What fucking ladies?" He goes, "Get back on there." He's like, "We're not paying you $5,000 for 5 minutes." And I'm defeated, dude. It's over. It's over. They've seen my vulnerability. So I walk back on stage, and I start telling jokes, and the guy's standing there, and he's laughing, and then he disappears, and those fucking chicks come right back up. They start swearing at me and getting me out. So I'm like, "I'm out. Peace." And I was like, "I'm not getting fucking paid. That's it." I walk off stage, and he's like, "Yeah, I understand. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry about that. That happened." He ends up paying me, but it was such a he ends up paying me. It was such a horrible, shocking experience that I literally cried in my car afterwards. And I was 31. I was an adult male. And I was just like weeping at how mean these women were. But hindsight, it was hilarious. I got paid $5,000 to do 10 minutes of work. But in the moment, I was devastated.
What were they so pissed off about? The 9/11 thing?
It was like, again, very, very new wound to the country. Plus, at a charity event where all of their children had committed suicide, they weren't up for jokes. It like wasn't the ideal place, for any humor, let alone whatever. But they fucking hated me. It was awesome.
Yeah, man, it's a freaking hard thing to do sometimes. But sometimes I've had shows like that, and I'm driving home, and I'm like, yeah, that sucked, but you just made more in an hour than your dad made doing body work on cars for 40 hours,
Right, exactly.
For telling jokes for an hour. And it's easy to get caught up in this sucks, but when you think about it like that, it's like, well, suck it up. You're all right.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. What do you still love about it?
Stand up?
Yeah.
Just the feeling. Like it's just, you're complete control. Like it's just, I mean, just like you're the magnet in the room. Like it's like nothing else matters. It's just you, that microphone, and things that you thought.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Richard Pryor said it best. He said, when you're up there and you're killing, he goes, nothing beats it. Not drugs, not even pussy.
Yeah. It's true. It's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, that's probably the best I've ever heard it put. When I read that, I remember getting chills. Like, yeah, Richard gets it.
He sure does.
Yeah, man. Well, I could talk to you all day, but I got to go pick up my boy. And
Well, thanks for having me. And you got to do mine, man.
Yeah, I would love to. Anytime you want me to, buddy.
All right, I'll reach out and we'll set it up.
Is there something you want to promote before I let you get out of here?
I mean, hey, if you enjoyed this conversation, everybody, check out my podcast. It's wherever you stream.
Okay, cool, man. Well, I appreciate it, buddy. It was great talking to you. I think you're one of the funniest guys out there. And
right back at you.
God bless you, buddy. Talk to you
later. Thanks, Tim. All right, see ya.
Bye-bye. All righty, J. Chris Newberg. I've always liked that guy. He's always been very funny, and he's a very smart dude in a lot of ways, and he always tells you how he thinks about things and is not shy about it. And so he's one of the people that I always enjoy seeing when I go to LA. He's kind of I get a little anxious sometimes, and he's one of the guys. I should have told him this on the podcast, but he always kind of calms me down just because he seems like a very calm person. And anybody who sees me on stage or meets me thinks that I'm super calm, and I guess I am for the most part, but inside I get a little anxious sometimes before stand up, and I think that's just the nature of the beast. But being around J. Chris Newberg always kind of calms me down in my own mind, and I wish I would have told him that. But anyway, really appreciate you guys listening. As always, go to Making It Happen, MACANITHappen.com. Help out little Bo Macon and his family. And I think that's it. God bless all of you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for the support of my YouTube channel. It's creeping up on 18,000 subscribers, so that's good, and gets me closer to that goal of doing just the shows that I want to do, whether it's small theaters or a good bar. I don't give a shit as long as I'm making good money and the people are there to have a good time. That's the goal. And so I'll let you guys go. Appreciate all your time, and God bless all of you. Have a good day. Take care. Bye. Do us both a favor and click on that subscribe button.